Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing, coming to you with a quick video on how I am going to use some book pages to make some pockets, and I'm going to do some stamping on the book pages and do some watercoloring. I mentioned this before in another video, and that I had done another video that just didn't turn out very good. It was way too chatty and just confusing, so I decided to go ahead and give it another try. So I just pulled some stamps from my stash. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to use. These are from Unity Stamp Company. They're my favorite stamp company stamps to buy. These beautiful images, beautiful sayings, you know, you make life sparkle. Be proud of yourself for how hard you're trying. Stay patient and trust your journey. Those kinds of things. And then I love this rose. It's one of my favorite roses to paint. And then we've got this this dragonfly, which I thought would be nice, or this peony. I've got another rose over here, so I'm not really sure. And this feather, I definitely want to use this feather. So let's just put those out of the way. So I mentioned in another video that I did an experiment where I used what's called watercolor ground, which is a ground that is designed for you to apply to a surface before you watercolor, so that the watercolor will actually stick to it and stay and not just run off or slide off. So it's meant so that you can paint on tin, glass, canvas, all kinds of things with watercolor, which is really epic. I've never really used it much because I got into junk journaling and I stopped really experimenting and playing as much with watercolor. I hope to do that in the future though, because it's a very relaxing, very healing thing for me to do. I really, really love watercolor. So I've also got some brushes. These are watercolor brushes. I've got my vintage photo archival ink. In the previous video that you did not see, I did stamp with my black archival ink, and I felt like it was a little too bold. So I'm going to go ahead. I may not. Depends on the image, I think, which one I decide to use. But I'm going to pull the other one out just in case I decide that I want to use the black instead. So, and you would have seen the product of the ones that I made in the Daisy Dream Journal flip through, because I did use those pockets in the in that journal, so at least some of them. So what I did off camera, just to save time, is I went ahead and I glued two book pages together. This is from an old, I believe this is, goodness gracious, what's the book? Goodness, let me look. It is from Little Women, and it's a copy from 1946. So I cut a page in half, or mostly in half, and I went ahead and I used gesso on here. So my experiment was using gesso on some pages and then the watercolor ground on the others to see if there was a difference. There was not a difference. So the watercolor still was able to sit on the surface. It didn't like soak the page and things like that, because watercolor is primarily water and pigment. So you have to be careful about what you're applying it on, because it would really wet down this and sop this paper. So these are all of my pockets, which will make more sense here in a second. I'm going to do 4 on camera, probably 2 in real time, and then maybe I'll speed up, or I'll do all the watercolor, and then I'm going to let those dry, and then I'll come back and do the stamping. On the other video, I did the stamping first, and then I did the watercolor, and that wasn't as freeing because then I was thinking about the image and not just getting color down. So that's kind of what I'm thinking now. And I created these toppers. So the way this is going to work is this is going to be the pocket. Let me move these out of the way. I'm already jibber jabbering. The pocket is going to go here, and I am going to be stitching around, so these are only glued with glue stick, and then this is going to fold down. I actually saw this originally on Tatty Treasures. Oh goodness, you know who I'm talking about. Treasure Books. Natasha over at Treasure Books. So that's kind of what I'm following here. I saw her video and I thought, wow, I really need to use some of my book pages. I've collected so many books that have pages that are this size, and they're really hard to use in a journal. unless you have a book where you can be really careful and take the book apart by signature, because they are also bound by signature just as our junk journals are. But I didn't do that this time, but I could totally do that in the future. Depends on how old the book is. So that's what it's going to look like. So I created a piece of cardstock. This is just from scraps for each side of that flap, and then the rest will all just be book page. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to go ahead and do the watercolor portion now. So these are these don't have any gesso on them because I'm not painting on them, so I didn't need to do that. But again, I will be stitching. These all have a coat of the clear gesso, which again just creates a little bit of what they call tooth to the paper that allows the watercolor to adhere to it. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to again start with just getting all these with some paint on them. So I did pull out another set of my watercolors. These are my Rembrandt watercolors. They are like the top of the line watercolors. I love them. Early in my exploration of watercolor, and because I had the means to do it, I went for the really good stuff, and now I'm spoiled. I have a really hard time not using professional watercolors, so it's just an absolutely gorgeous set. Look at these colors. They're just beautiful. It's very well used and very well loved. It's my favorite paint. So that being said, I do need to wet this this pan here, because that's going to help loosen up and get those paints ready. So let me grab my squirt bottle here. I mentioned in my other video I did move my monitor again because it was very far from the light, and it was crooking my neck, because it's more natural for me to look to the left than to look to the right. So it's back over here, and much more in my line of sight as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just squirt these with some water just to get them activated. You can use any kind of water soluble medium for this effect. You could use Neocolor crayons. You could use child watercolors, you could use professional watercolors, you could use gelatos. There's a number of distressings, all of those things that you guys have probably experimented with, but this is going to be out of view just because I don't have enough room here on my desk. So I'm going to go ahead and get 3 of these in front of us here so we can get going. I've got 2 pots of water. One for my clean water, even though the pot looks really yucky because it's stained. These ice cream containers are epic for watercolor. And then I've got another one that as I rinse my brush, the dirty water will be in this one, so I can keep from contaminating my my pans. So I'm going to be using this as a guide for what colors I want to choose. So there we go. Enough of that talk. I need some paper towels here though, because you do have to kind of wipe the brush off and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with watercolor at all, but again, you could use any water soluble. You could actually do this with, you couldn't really do it with acrylics because acrylics are very opaque. You could use it, you could do gouache, which is an opaque, more opaque watercolor, but you could just play around. Use your distressings, use your sprays, because you could use sprays and just put them in a little dish and then use your brush and apply it. So let me see what I want to start with. I think I want to start with a gamboge, which is a really pretty yellow, actually a Rulian, because it is, my chart is upside down, which means I would tap into the wrong pan. There we go. Gamboge, or a Rulian, is a more transparent yellow, so it kind of looks weird in the pan here, but I'm going to go ahead and get some of that on my thing. There we go. Just going to get some paint here. And I'm going to rinse my brush off, and I'm going to get my secondary color. So I think I want a green, a blue. Yellow and blue make green. So I'm going to get a blue. My favorite is where is it? Ultramarine. So I'm going to get that in this pot here. Really, really beautiful, beautiful color. So we're going to get a green. We're going to get some mixing because I don't like I don't want to make mud, so I want to use what are called color friends on the color wheel. So those are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. They will play nice. If you do things, let me show you my color wheel so I can show you what I mean here. I did this in the other video and I neglected to pull that out. Oh, I can't reach it. So for instance, yellow and purple are on opposite sides of the color wheel. So if you mix those two, you're going to get mud, you're going to get brown, you're going to get an ugly color. But if you mix orange and yellow, you're going to be okay. If you mix 2 tones of blue, you're going to be okay. Obviously, we know you can mix red and blue and get purple. So you just have to be careful about those opposites on the color wheel, is what I'm saying. So here we go. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and get my goodness gracious, I can't talk, my paper wet. So I'm going to start with this one here. And I'm just going to put a bunch of water on here. I don't want it to be sopping wet, but I do want a good application. And I don't want it to cover all the edge because I like that kind of a hard line where that paint meets the barrier, because watercolor is only going to go where there's water, where it's wet, because it is water reactive. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one too, just so that it has a chance to soak into the paper a little bit. There we go. We'll just do 2 at a time here. So I don't know if you can see the gesso, but there is gesso, because there's some places here where there's a discoloration. That's where the gesso didn't get to, which is okay. So I'm going to start with my yellow, my Cerulean yellow, and I'm just going to kind of put it here and there. I don't really want to cover the whole thing. Just kind of like that. Just a really soft color. I'm going to rinse my brush off. And I'm going to go in with the blue. I always get some in my pan and then I still dip into the other pot. So you can see we're getting a little bit of a green there. Which is okay. It's really strange there in the middle though. It's really interesting. Not what I expected. It's really beautiful though. So now I'm going to go ahead. The other thing I noticed with the other project is I get all this pooling in the center. So where the paper has been kind of affected by the gesso. So I'm just going to sop up a little bit of that because I don't really want it to set there so much. So like that. And I'm going to go in with a little bit more of that Cerulean. Since this is really pale at this point, I'm dipping right into my pot of paint because it's going to be more concentrated versus what I've put out on my in my palette. There we go. A little bit more. Okay. I think that's good. I'm just going to sop some of this up again. Feeling like I really want more blue. I don't want it to be mixed, which would mean I would need to actually let this dry. But I'm going to go in with a darker bit here and see what we get. Less water means more concentrated pigment. And I think with this, I'm going to take this paper towel and I'm just going to kind of go like this and let the paper towel kind of soak up some of that liquid. Except it's not really touching it. Let's try that again. That's better. I think I want to go in with a true green, so not a mixture. So let's see what green I've got in my palette here. These aren't my favorite. Oh, there's my sap, my Turner sap green. That'll work. It's not very wet. Okay. Let's just get some straight up green here. I'm just going to touch these edges because I really want I want that barrier. You can see where the paint is stopping there because the water, that's the water line. So we're going to go ahead and set this one aside and do the next one. So I'm just going to quietly and gently remove that, set it over here. Let's do the second one here. So let's go with a different combination of colors. I need to grab a wipe and wipe out my palette. It's not my favorite green that I just dipped into. That's okay. This time we're going to try, I want to do a turquoise and my quinacridone gold. Do I have that in this set? I can't remember. Let's see. We've got transparent brown oxide, burnt umber, burnt sienna. We don't have that gold in this set. Bummer. Okay, well, we're just playing, right? It's all good. You do want to make sure you get all the paint out of your brush, so that's why you see me doing that on my paper towel here, because you don't want to get color in that you don't want. So I'm going to go in with the turquoise, which is super vibrant here. Gorgeous color. Look at that. The camera is showing it way bluer than it is. It's not this blue. It's very, very turquoise. So, and I think I want some yellow to go with that. So let's go ahead and get the gamboge. Okay. I'll go ahead and wet this again because it probably is dried out somewhat. Let's start with the yellow. I'm going to probably speed this part up, guys, okay? You guys can just watch. Part of what's happening here is that because of the gesso, I've got some bowing in my paper, which is why this is all, we've got these little rivers of water and paint, but I think it's going to be okay, so I'm just going to set that aside as well. In fact, you know what? Let's just let that run a second and see what we get. Let's just let it run. That might be good. Kind of let it just, I love the play between the pigment and the water. It's really, really cool. Yeah, let me just do the same with this one. I don't know how dry this is. It might not run much. It's running a little bit. Just like so. Oh, that's cool. I like that. Okay, so let's do 2 more, and then we will dry those and we will move on to the next step. I think the watercolor ground might have worked better because this is just causing the paint to sit on the surface, and that's why it's moving around so much. But it's going to be okay because we're just playing, right? Sometimes you just have to experiment and see what will happen, right? I'm going to go ahead and splatter some yellow here and see what happens. Yeah. We might go back and splatter some of those other ones too. I'm going to let this run a little bit. So again, it doesn't have to be complicated with watercolors. You can use just any water-soluble product if you want that loose effect. So basically what I'm going for there is just a background for me to stamp my images on. So it just depends on how loose you want that to be. So let's see, what do we want to try now? Let's do a really beautiful Prussian blue. This is a gorgeous color. Oh, look at that. Whoa, that is amazing. I'm going to dry these really quick, and I might come in with a little bit more color, so I will be right back when these are dried. Okay, so these are not completely dry, but they are dry enough to do the next thing that I want to try, which is to splatter. So this is all really blue. I'm wondering if I want a different color in there because I only did that Prussian blue, and I think that we need a little bit more. So let's see, let's go ahead and go in with some yellow. We'll go in and use this yellow that we used with the that pink. It was a rose. It's called quinacridone rose. Let's go ahead and do some splattering here. Oh, that's lovely. And again, you could totally do this with any water-soluble medium that you have. I'm going to do the same on this one. Splatter with the yellow. The nice thing about this is it's watercolor, so it just wipes off of your surfaces if you get it on your furniture or your desk. So that is nice. I'm going to go in and do the same with this blue. I'm going to splatter some of that blue. I'm going to make it pretty concentrated here because I don't want it to get all watered down. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Okay, we're going to set that aside. I love it. Let me show you this. Isn't that beautiful? And so all these edges that you see like here, that is where the water came up to the barrier, its own barrier, and it didn't go past it. And so we got this kind of a hard line, kind of watercolor language there. And then this one, I think we want to go in with some of that that pink again. So I've got a smaller brush just to see if I get a bit of a different effect with my splatters. Let's just see what happens. But because it's a water reactive medium, you wouldn't want to come in and do a color that if you put it on here, it's going to mix with the other color and create brown or create mud. So, so you do have to be thinking about your color friends. So there's that one. I love it. This is much better than the last project. This one I love too, but I think it needs some more of that turquoise. So we're going to go ahead and get my brush clean here so that we can go in with that. I'm going to come in with a little bit of this gold. Well, actually, I think I'll dry these first, and then we will splatter a little bit of gold acrylic paint on them. So let me get these over here and dry them really quick, and I will be back with you, and we'll do the stamping portion. I think we're done with the watercolors. Okay, so these are pretty much dry. I'm going to go ahead and do some acrylic splashing. So now that I've done this, I'm not really sure how these are going to go with what I chose for the top. So I may take these tops off and just do those later. Just show you how I do the actual pocket, and then the top flap can be decorated depending on what journal you're doing. So I'm thinking I might go that route. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some of this acrylic paint out. Let me just use my lid here, right here. Just gonna squeeze some of this out. One of my favorite acrylic colors. It's called Iridescent Gold Fine. It's really gorgeous. So smaller brush, smaller splatters. So that's a kind of a rule of thumb to keep in mind. So I'm just going to spray some water in this away from my electronics, just to make it a little bit less thick. I'm just going to mix it up in there, and then we're going to splatter. Okay, just get a little gold in here. We all need a little gold in our life, don't we? Well, I think so anyway. So my friend came and picked up the journal for her friend, so I'm so excited. I'm excited to be done with it. I'm excited she loved it, and she feels really confident that her friend will like it as well, which I'm not surprised by that, but it's always kind of a risky thing because what I like isn't necessarily what somebody else likes. So there we go. Yeah, so I think I'm not going to put those toppers on the pockets. I might, if one of these fits, I might do one, but we'll see. There we go. Okay, we are done with the liquid. So I'm going to dry this again, and I'll be right back with you. Those are nice and dry. So there's just a close-up. I hope you can see the gold. Let's see if we can focus this. Yeah, it's not going to show up as good on that color because it's light, but you can see the gold on that one. It's beautiful. But you can see the brush strokes. That's from the gesso. So that's a little bit different than I'm used to in watercolor. So, and maybe that's why I'm feeling a little bit more like critical of what's going on here, but I think for the purposes that we're doing this is going to be gorgeous. But I love these hard lines, and that edge is just gorgeous. So these are a little bit damp on the back, but I think it's going to be okay. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and start our stamping. So these are coming apart. Let me get a little bit of glue here and just glue these edges because I don't want them coming apart. Let me just do that really quick. I'll be right back. Probably the liquid. Okay, so I've got my stamping platform here. So let me get it over here so that we can work with it. When I created these toppers, I wasn't really thinking about what watercolor image I was choosing or what watercolor colors I was going to be using, so I didn't think that through all the way, but that's okay. So I'm going to try to get this on camera for you guys. So this is my Tim Holtz or Iconic Studios stamping platform. I love it. So this is one that I think I will use as is. So this is supposed to go the other way. I may not use that feather because it's supposed to go tall. This rose would be beautiful. I think I'll do the rose. So let's get this rose out. Roses are my favorite thing to watercolor paint. My favorite. So I'm just going to get that ready, and this needs to be on the clear side, which it's not. So I need to flip my top. I flip my top in a good way, and then I'm going to go ahead and secure this with my magnets. This way we can get another stamping in if you know what, I need to move this up though, so that is problematic because Nope, the whole thing will fit. I thought it was going to be too tall. As much as possible, I try to really actually butt this up into the corner, because if it lifts while I'm stamping and it moves the paper, then the double stamp, it won't work. It's kind of pointless. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over. And I think I'm going to put her right in the center here. Kind of like so. And then I'm going to close this. I think I'm going to use the black on this now that I see the color down. So see what's happening there? It's lifting that. So hopefully we'll get a good first impression, because we're going to probably have that problem. Do I have another magnet? Let me see, guys. Oh, there's my big one. Let me see if this really powerful magnet will help keep that paper down so it does not pull up in the middle. Here's hoping. So I'm going to ink this up. It's off camera, guys. I'm not going to keep sliding this, but you know how to do it. You just apply your ink to the stamp on the lid. I mean, I suppose I shouldn't assume that you know, but let me just show you this first time. So that's the lid, and you're just stamping your image there, and then you're going to close the lid like so, and then give it a good press. That magnet is in the way. Darn it. This magnet right here. I can feel the lid didn't want to close all the way. So I'm just going to give it a second to soak in. Let that ink kind of get to the paper. Oh, that's actually kind of pretty though, even though it's not a complete image. You know what? I'm going to go with that. I'm going to move this magnet though, because I think that's why I didn't get an impression over here. So I'm going to try to switch this up a little bit. I'm going to move that over there, and I'm going to move this over here. Let's try that again. I think that's probably why. That magnet was in the way. I could feel it. So we should be able to stamp again, hopefully. Yeah, for some reason that magnet is really thick. Maybe it's not meant for this. Maybe it's meant for the Misty or something. Not sure. Oh, look at that. Look at that. There you go. Isn't that cool? And it looks really like vintagey and old. Ooh, I love it. Okay, so we are done with that. I'll stop going on and get on with this. I'll probably set this to music and speed up this part of the process for you a little bit, and I will be back with you. This image was a little bit big, but I really wanted to use it, so I am using it. Sorry for the shaking of my table. I apply a lot of pressure when I do this. Oh, I love that. Love it. Look at that. Gorgeous. I am so happy with that. So let me get this stuff out of the way here. And then we're going to start putting our pockets together, and I'm going to sew. So I do need to get rid of some stuff. So I think I will pause for a moment, clean up my desk so I can make room for the sewing machine to move closer to me, and I will be right back. Okay, so I realized I didn't really explain what I was going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this pocket on to this part of the project. So my sewing machine is acting funny, so my little arm thingy won't stay up. So I'm not sure what happened because nothing has changed. So I'm not sure if it's going to work. So I'm going to do a test, and I'm going to stitch these, and I'll be back. Okay guys, so this is the first one done. It didn't turn out exactly like I thought, but I actually kind of like it. I didn't account for the flap. So, but I love it. I inked everything. I apologize, I just completely missed showing you guys that. Silly me. So, but that's what it looks like. It's got black. I did just put black thread in because I had black thread in a bobbin and I was too lazy to change my bobbin thread. So that is what that one looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and do the others, and I will show you here when I'm done with all of the sewing. Okay, we are all done with the sewing. I'll show you this last one. So I have to tell you though, I've never done anything like this. I've never used book pages like this, so I'm not sure how I feel about that being upside down. So I probably will put something maybe just in this section in here, and not all the way to the edge where I've sewn. So that is what that one looks like. Isn't that just gorgeous? I love how the vintage photo archival ink around the edges makes it look so worn. And then this one as well. I mean, look at that image. It's just beautiful, if I do say so myself. And so again, and this one I folded it wrong, so it wasn't covering up my thumb notch. So I'm gonna have to do something there, but that's okay, because on each of these I could have my paper go all the way to the edge and just come down like that. So that's gonna be fine. And then this one, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. I've never done this before, so it's very different. I love this one. I really, really love this one. So yeah, this flap is a little bit heavy, but I think it's okay. I used some pretty heavy paper there, but I love it. So thank you guys so much for coming by. Take care. Bye-bye.